Welcome to the Potpourri Podcast. I'm your host, Angela Walker, and I'm here with an amazing person in the health industry. She is a hormone therapist, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes. And Chemaine Linnie actually joins us from Canada. She's originally from Ireland. According to her website, she's 100% Irish, immigrated to Canada in 2014. And your journey started as an expert in your field. You are a do-it-yourself biology, right? Biohacking or biohacker?
Yeah.
Yes. And also a certified erodologist. Oh my gosh, I'm saying this. I'm messing.
Iridologist.
Thank you. Nutritional therapist, Pilates instructor, personal trainer, hair mineral analysis consultant, and molecular hydrogen level 3 professional. These are just a few of your accolades, but we'll dive deeper into those as we go into the conversation. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Angela. It's a pleasure to speak to you again.
Yes, I know it's been a minute. So the big reason I brought you on the show, and I know there's been a lot of buzz in probably the last 2 or 3 years about perimenopause, not full on menopause, but women my age, late 40s, some as early as mid 30s, right? That are dealing
Earlier.
with a lot of symptoms. You never know when they're going to strike. And it's like the revenge of your period. It's like coming back to bite you right in the ass. So I wanted to talk about that, kind of address a few things, talk about your background. But first, what led you to this industry in particular? You've been in it for 14 years. So what led you to this journey in your career?
It's been longer now. It's 17 years, if I'm correct.
What?
So
Okay.
my journey started in 2006
Okay.
when I had hit my heaviest weight, which was 280 pounds. And back then, I was pretty young. Back then, I suppose we didn't pay attention to the scale or our weight too much. I didn't have much awareness. And obviously I was getting up there and my sister was concerned and she convinced me. She said, hey, me and my friend, we're going to a Weight Watchers class because they wanted to lose weight. So they invited me. It was their gentle way of saying, hey, you need some help. I remember I went to the Weight Watchers class. I didn't know what to expect. I had never weighed myself, and I stood on the scale and it said 280 pounds. And that hit me like a ton of bricks because I knew I was overweight, but I didn't know how bad it was.
Yeah.
So I remember going home that night and just crying and saying, I'll never be that number again, like never again. And I made an oath, not to God, not to my family, not to anyone else, to myself. I will never, because I already knew I was unhappy. Like I was very unhappy, the binge eating, bullying, aches, pains. And then from there, I started to lose the weight. And then I hit my goal weight. I lost 150 pounds of body fat in a year and a half, which is like, upon reflection now, it's insane. And I used to joke because, when you hit your goal at Weight Watchers, they make you stand up on the stage and say something inspirational to everyone. And I said, I literally just lost Kylie Minogue. And of course, everyone laughed. And then during that year and a half, I knew that I liked exercise. It made me feel good, the dopamine hit. I felt empowered. So then I transitioned into personal training. I got my degree in personal training in the University of Limerick back in Ireland. And then I got qualified in Pilates. And then it just kept snowballing. I got a contract with one of the leading prenatal exercise companies in Ireland. And I was doing personal training, and it just evolved. And then I had my second baby and we emigrated to Canada. So everything kind of got put on hold then because we were super young and we didn't realize the challenges it is to move country or how expensive it was.
Oh, yeah.
So I kind of put my business on hold for a year and a half because I didn't know anyone. I was getting new. So I ended up getting a job in one of the local gyms here. And that was great because I was able to kind of show what I was capable of and get to know people. And, I have a strong personality. I'm pretty confident. And that was a way for me to kind of like show people like I'm here, this is what I can do, and I'm going to build it. So then I ended up starting my business in Canada in 2016, and my background is biology, and I specialized in orthomolecular nutrition. So it was really just focusing on, as I say to my clients, like how nutrition impacts the body. Like, what does
Mm.
it do? How is it influencing your genetics, your hormones, as we're going to
Right.
touch on, like your aches, pains, cognitive performance, the whole lot. And then from there, like the business just blew up. I've
Yeah.
been doing my podcast since 2016 as well. I didn't know what I was doing when I started podcasting. I was like, just speak and see what happens. And
Right. Right.
now it's like it's amazing. But
Yeah.
um as I got older, a lot of my clients have stayed with me since
Mhm.
2016, which is amazing. Like they're
Yeah.
still with me, they still trust me, they refer a lot of people. But because I'm getting older and they're getting older, it was natural that I transitioned more into hormones.
Okay.
And I've had my own challenges, and I had a run in with cervical cancer. I have
Oh.
diverticulosis. I have hypothyroidism.
Uh,
Like I've had to learn a lot as I've gone along, and
right.
learning to help myself, which helps my people. You know, the saying of your mess becomes your message.
Yep.
And then I've almost had no choice but to
Right.
transition into the perimenopause field, because that's where my people are going, and
Right.
like they're important to me. I want to help
Mm.
them, and the
Right.
reason I want to help them is because they trust me. Like they're good enough to trust me. I want to help them. So that's where I am today, and just really been very blessed to be taken under the wings of like Dr. Michael Platt.
Okay.
You're probably aware of him. He is a medical doctor at Palm Springs, and he
Mhm.
specializes in bioidentical hormones, specifically progesterone. So 2 years ago, he offered to mentor me, and I was like, no way. So,
Wow.
and
Wow.
then I've had a lot of other people. Keith Littlewood is great. He mentors me. He's out of the UK. He helps me with thyroid, and like there's a lot of great people that help me,
Mhm.
which I think is very synergistic, because I want to help people. So I have people who help me, and they're very kind with their time, which is great. So it just kind of it's flowed.
Yeah.
And I try, I think, before I ramble on too much, I really
That's
do
okay.
put a lot of trust into God and the plan and what he wants for me and what I'm
Right.
supposed to do in the world. And even those weeks that are hard, like we spoke about before we recorded, like I trust there's a reason this is happening. Like,
Right.
so I think that plays a big part in my growth as well.
Well, I found it interesting because you were talking about when you were younger, and I had gained a lot of weight in my early 20s drinking beer. I was a runner in high school. My coach told me what to eat, but didn't explain it. I was told what to eat. I was a pretty decorated runner. I mean, I did cross country and I did track. I did mostly long distance. And whatever my coach told me to eat, I did. And I just stayed lean because, that's what I did. So I never got into that. I really love running, but then, in my early 20s, I was in college, I was drinking a lot of beer. I just wasn't working out. And
Mm.
I did the same thing. I had gained, I'm not going to say how much I tipped the scales, but it was like probably close to 200, right?
Yeah.
And then I had a baby. And then when I had the baby, holy Moses, we won't even go there. I didn't even look at the scale. I think I had my back to it. And as much as I don't want to fixate on weight, because if you're doing weight training, that changes things. So it's not about that. But when you're not exercising and you're drinking a lot of beer and eating a lot of processed foods, guess what happens, right? The scale is going to tell you, you're going to feel it.
Mm.
And I got back into running, and I will never forget you said that you found exercise and you fell in love with it. You fell in love with it. I don't know if it was again. For me, I fell in love with it again. For me, it was getting back into running and iPods. iPods and MP3 players were like a thing. And I was like, this is amazing. I'm not doing a Walkman on my head. And but that running, that was like, I fell in love with exercise again. What exercise was it that you did, Chemaine, that was like, that just made you love exercise again? Because everybody's different, but I was curious about what your journey was. Like, what was it that you went, holy Moses, I freaking love exercising.
You know what? Like when you say again, as you said that, I was like, well, yeah, I did. In Ireland, we have like GAA, which is where we do like our Gaelic soccer,
Mm.
hurling, and we do a girls' version of hurling, which is camogie, which is like
What?
super violent. If you ever
Oh,
YouTube it, there's
I'm
this
going to.
comedian guy that he has a clip on Instagram and YouTube talking about like Irish women and camogie and like how dangerous it is. We have these big sticks and they're wrapped in steel at the end. And
What?
it's just like crazy. So I did that for a while and I enjoyed it. But as you're saying that, I'm like, apart from that, I did some tap dancing. I liked that. But the thing was, unfortunately, my mom never really instilled in us, me or my sister, how to take care of ourselves. And
Yes.
I think part of that is because she didn't know. So I'm not blaming her, but she didn't
Right.
know. So we were never taught like how to eat, how to
Mhm.
take care of ourselves, even on a very basic level. Like we were taught like, oh, your period comes once a month, here's your menstrual pads. Like that was as far as it went.
Right.
Although we weren't taught anything else. And so I was almost like clueless when
Yeah.
I started my journey. But my dad was always like very fit, very muscular. He owned a contracting company. Like he would take me to the site. He's who taught me my confidence, because I was always
Oh.
on a site talking to other men, and like I would stand beside him and listen to how he spoke, and that kind of
Yeah.
built my and he always like uplifted me. But he would always have some sort of weights or something around, and I not that that inspired me, but it was always ingrained in me.
Mhm.
So when I did start exercising, I actually realized like I have a real talent for this.
Yeah, and it feels
Um,
good, and it felt good. It made sense. You're like, I feel good. I'm glad I accomplished this.
but also because I had been bullied so much, like a
Oh.
lot, to the point of
Oh.
tears, and a lot of people have, but
Yeah, but it's not.
but
Yeah.
getting into exercise and like whatever it is, I started with dance aerobics because I always loved dance, and then I
Okay.
got into the weights and everything. Whatever it was, the more I did it, the more I realized like I'm better than that. I can do
Mm.
more than what people are saying. I'm not just
Right.
the fat girl, the loser. Like
Right.
I'm more. And the more I did it, the more I built my own self-confidence, and I started trusting myself. Like I am capable of a lot more than what I thought, but also what other people were telling me. Um,
Yes.
so there's like, I think people misunderstand the aspect of exercise. Of course, it
Mhm.
has all these benefits, but they don't
Right.
realize deep down it builds character, it builds
Yes.
self-trust, it builds
Yes.
the confidence, it builds an inner strength that you really only can get by pushing yourself in the gym to
Mhm.
do something hard.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
it's like, yeah.
Right, you don't have to win the marathon. You just have to show up and give your best. And it changes you. I absolutely, and that training part of it is a big deal. I mean, and having those milestones, you don't have to obsess about it. I will tell you, if you give yourself, well, okay, I have this rule. So I have a Peloton and I blew out my knee. I was a hell of a runner. I used to do a half marathon in 1 hour and 47 minutes. That's pretty impressive.
That is.
And I trained pushing my kids in the jogger. And then when I would run, I would be like, oh, I lighter weight. Right. So, but even now I have a Peloton, my knees, I have knee replacement surgery that has to happen soon. I know it's sad, but anyway, long story long, I fell in love with my Peloton. Well, whenever I don't want to work out, I have a 3-minute rule. And this is something my cross country coach taught me. He's like, if you can get past the first 3 minutes,
Hmm.
you will continue. And
Yeah.
it's this game you play with yourself when you don't want to exercise. And then for me, I like force myself on the bike, or back in the day, I forced myself on the treadmill, and I would go, okay, you know what? I'm going to do this for 3 minutes. And every time, I swear to you, that 3-minute rule, that shit works. You do it. I swear by it. And I've learned that in the early 90s when I was still in high school. I know I'm dating myself. Speaking of dating myself, I do want to do a deep dive into the hell that is perimenopause, maybe some myths that you can shed light on. I will tell you that I was very fortunate. I started my period at 13. as did my daughter, who's 17 now. By the way, we cycle at the same time. It's nuts. What a weird way God made us.
It is interesting.
What was he thinking? Or I mean, do you really need more women together syncing on their period at work or home? Holy Moses, like who asked for this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'll know when my daughter starts her period, I'm like, oh no, mine's coming soon. But I didn't really have any signs of all of the symptoms, and I want you to expand on this, of perimenopause until I was like 46. So I'm 49 now. Let's first off, can you talk a little bit about the symptoms, the most unknown symptoms or general symptoms? Because I didn't know that I was going through it way before 46. I think I was going through it sooner, but I didn't really notice it. The biggest thing that I noticed was, wait, I'm still doing low carb. I've cut out soda, processed foods, and sugars, but I'm not losing weight, even though I'm getting on hit right. So let's talk, like, I'm going to let you dive into that a little bit more. And that was my first clue, and I'm in that hell right now.
Well, first, it would be negligible of me to not mention that no two women are alike. Like
Okay.
everyone is going to respond differently. Me and my sister,
Yeah.
completely different experiences. And even with the cycling at the same time as another female in the house, I'm sure there was some reason to it back in ancestral days
Yeah.
before we had electricity and everything. It must have been some way of optimizing fertility to ensure the population kept growing and our
Okay.
lineage carried on. I'm positive there was something there because you probably know or you've heard of it. We do see in the literature based on like back in the 1800s, before we had like the dominance of electricity and light, most women would always cycle around the full moon.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
even now, a lot of women, like we have a full moon tonight, which is coincidence, maybe not.
Are you serious? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm
I
totally
believe
freaked out
I
now.
don't know if you're into astrology. It's supposed to be like
A little
Leo's
bit.
full moon, and it's supposed to be about rebirth and transitioning. Um,
Is that the year that's connected to like 2025 as well? Because I heard
yeah,
that
yeah.
2025 is considered, this particular year, it's kind of a cycle. It's like I follow enough to know a little that with the full moon, it's supposed to bring on people that are more aware. There's like a
Yeah.
deeper connection. There's an awakening, so to speak.
Yeah, a rebirth, a
Rebirth.
transition of old into new, kind of what we were speaking about before.
Yeah,
So coincidence or not, maybe not, but um
but yeah,
that even now I will say to my clients and my groups, like, oh, full moon, is anyone noticing anything different? Some moons will hit us like a ton of bricks, and
yeah,
some moons you're fine, you feel great, like you feel like you could take on the world, but it does have a direct influence to our hormones. But back to like the perimenopause aspect, we know that our peak hormone health, like our peak health, happens at the age of 12. And then
what?
from then on, well,
It's
obviously
downhill.
we go, yeah, it's all downhill from the age of 12.
Damn, that's depressing, Chemaine. Thanks a lot for that.
Well, my little boy is 12 right now, and I'm like, look, enjoy it while it lasts. It doesn't get better after this.
Oops. I'm not
Like,
going to tell my kid that yet.
so then, like, well, that's usually when puberty starts to kick in. Like,
Yeah.
that's when our hormones peak. They're at our healthiest. And
Wow.
after that, everything either starts to go down or it starts to go haywire, one or the other. And
Oh,
even what you were saying earlier, like in
yeah.
Chinese medicine, perimenopause is recognized as our second puberty as well. And
Wow.
it is a time for a lot of women and even young girls in puberty nowadays,
Mhm.
because of exposure, environmental, social, even social media exposure, all this exposure, it is a time where everything can be quite unpredictable, and
Yeah.
it can really turn your life upside down a lot. So from the age of 12, things start to change. for lack of a better word, normally we
Mhm.
would start to see perimenopause symptoms start to occur around the age of 45.
Okay.
But dare I say, since the pandemic, things are not normal anymore. And like that was very stressful for everyone, whether or not you
Yes.
think it was.
Yes, it
Like I
was.
speak to girls in the gym and they're like, it didn't bother me that much. And I'm like, don't be
Yeah,
naive.
right.
If you're waking up every morning and you think the world is ending, that
Yeah.
is affecting you.
Yeah.
Like, so
Yeah.
now we're actually seeing, and there is literature on this, that girls as young as 25 are starting to experience symptoms of perimenopause between
Wow.
the irregular cycles,
Yeah.
infertility, and ovulation, even hot flashes, night sweats,
Oh, no.
the supposed associated weight gain to
Yeah.
that. Like, so back to what I said, like no two women are the same.
Yeah.
I
That's true.
could start experiencing perimenopause symptoms at 35, and you may not experience anything till you're 50.
Yeah.
Um, so there is a lot to be considered. Like stress is a huge factor. And there's
Okay.
an awful misconception around one of the main symptoms of perimenopause. Um, and that would be the hot flashes and the night sweats, which is
Okay.
usually like, if you're going to get any symptoms, they're the ones that are the pain in the ass. Like those are
Yeah.
the ones that will annoy you the most, apart from maybe the weight gain. But like
Yeah.
the night sweats, if you've never had one, and I have had some, like it's always when I'm super stressed.
Yeah.
We actually see like that people who have more stress in their life are more prone to night sweats because of that
Ah,
adrenaline response. Even if there is
ah,
no hormonal shift, we can
okay.
still get night sweats. And there's a huge connection there between blood sugar regulation as well, because adrenaline is going to drop blood sugars, and
Okay.
that's going to affect your thermoregulatory process when you're asleep. And you wake
Oh,
up and you're soaking wet because
yeah.
underneath your body is having this huge adrenaline response. So
Yeah.
part of like when I'm working with people, I'm always starting with sleep and nutrition first. And sometimes just fixing those two things will eliminate night sweats before we look at supplements or hormones or anything like that.
It's so weird, Chemaine, that you talked about that fight or flight. So I tend to only get night sweats, and this is the craziest thing. And I'm going to go deep and personal. I tend to only get them when I'm super stressed.
Mm,
And it could be I'm going to bed. I go to bed by 10 every night. I'm kind of, I don't know, I'm just kind of boring. I mean, I'm a morning person. I'm to
mm,
the point of annoyance. I mean, I'm that person that gets up, pops out of bed. I'm not kidding. My brain is going at 5 in the morning. I'm like,
yeah.
but by 9 o'clock at night, yeah, I'm clocking out, like my brain and everything. But you're right. I don't get night sweats unless I've had a particularly stressful week, like I have now.
Mm,
So last night I was dealing with night sweats, and I mean bad, but I've had a very, and for good reason. I'm not stressing over, the flavor of cupcakes,
hmm.
or, if my hair color turned out okay, although that is a big deal. I really, because I maintain my blonde like you do, and I'm just trying to keep it real. But I don't know. I felt that they've been coming on all week. And it's funny that you said that, because I don't have all the perimenopausal symptoms. So when I've gone to my doctor, even a year and a half ago for my annual, he was like, well, are you having any dryness, vaginal dryness, low libido? Now, ironically, no.
Mm,
My husband, it has nothing to do with him. Well, I'm sure it does, but a little.
mhm,
But I'm not experiencing that at all. Like that's not even an issue for me. And the night sweats are, like you said, it's only when I'm really stressed. It's not on the regular. It's very, very random where I'm like, you got
yeah.
to turn down the AC to 68 or I'm going to die.
Mhm,
Most of the time, I'm okay when everything's at peace. But finding that balance is ridiculous. For me, the weight gain is frustrating because I value exercise. I work out 5 days a week. I avoid processed foods. I'm not a soda drinker, really. I don't really like soda anyways. I never have, but I avoid all of this sugar. And it's like when you're not going anywhere, it's such a defeating thing to deal with. So I
mhm.
think everybody has their roadblock. For some it might be libido, or it could be, but the night sweats, you called it. For me, it's stress.
And
Always.
it's because the stress
Always.
influences blood sugars.
Oh,
So
okay.
even in that instance, like if I've had a very stressful week and I notice I've been getting some night sweats, I'll even be more cognizant of my workout then, because I don't need to exacerbate that stress even more and make things worse.
Yeah.
And then making sure maybe I'll get in some extra carbs, because carbs can be the best medicine to push down that stress response. Like there's a lot to be considered. And you
Yeah.
mentioned the vaginal dryness, and in my experience, that's one of the later symptoms. Even like cycle
Um,
changes, they seem to be more the later symptoms, and the
yeah.
vaginal dryness doesn't even happen in all women. In my clients, I primarily see vaginal dryness and like tissue regression, where it's at the stage of it hurts to sit down. It's like sandpaper down there. Like it's so
Oh,
sore. And
oh,
some women will wipe and they'll bleed. That's how dry
oh,
it is. Like
yikes.
um I have a client, and she won't mind me sharing this story, obviously not her
Okay.
name, but
Right.
herself and her husband, they haven't had intercourse for like 15 years because it was so painful that they just
Oh,
gave up on it.
yeah.
And that was it. That was the end of it. They just gave up.
I'm so sorry
And
to hear that.
to the likes of us, we're like, oh my God, how are you even maintaining marriage at that stage? Like
Right,
they
right.
they have their own way of doing things, but that's how painful it can get. And usually I'll only see it get that bad in women who are very slim, so they have low body fat percentage.
Okay.
Because women who have body fat, are making extra estrogen. It's usually the estrogen connection that's going to cause the vaginal dryness. Um,
Oh,
although in saying that, there has been times where I've been like super stressed,
yeah.
because you know yourself, when you're a one-man show and you're taking care of everyone and you're taking
Yep,
care of the house and the
yep,
groceries and the floor needs to be like, it's just,
yep,
it never ends. It
yep.
like never
It
ends.
doesn't. It
That
doesn't, and especially when you're raising kids. Like, how old are your kids now?
12 and 20, because I had my
Oh,
youngest when I was 16, like just at the
wow.
start of my journey. Like after him, I had the pre-baby weight, and
Yeah.
that's where it all peaked. So it's been quite a crazy journey.
Yeah.
But as I
I
was
have
saying,
a
like
20-year-old as well. So
I
I
think
have a
I knew that. I think we knew
yeah,
even.
yeah. My son is the same age, and my daughter is 17. She's going to be 18. And but trying to balance that is, family life. You're working for yourself, trying to create a business, a brand, helping other people. It's tough. The balance is impossible. So
It's
now
so tough. Like, I think we
it is.
underestimate how tough it is. Like,
Yeah,
it's,
yeah,
and then you're like, some weeks I'm like, shit, I haven't had a shower since last Thursday and it's Friday. Like, sometimes you get to the stage and you're like, okay, I have so much to do. I'm doing nothing because
yeah,
there's too much to do. I'm just doing nothing.
yeah.
But what I was saying was, there has been times where I've gotten
Uh-oh.
very, very stressed, and I have
Chemaine, I
had.
think we lost you for a second.
Oh, well, I was saying was there has been times where I've been very, very stressed, even at my age, and I have had
Mhm.
vaginal dryness. Because when you're that stressed, well, what happens?
Yeah.
You pull
Yeah.
all the blood flow away from the reproductive organs, and it really is blood flow that keeps it moist down there, as much as
Oh.
moist is a taboo word.
Oh, I don't know why people have a hang up. One of my closest friends, Amy, if you're watching, she cannot stand, she hates that word. I'm like, stop it. You used to buy Duncan Hines back in the day. We're all fine with moist. I'm not going
Yeah.
to buy something. If it said dry, I mean, I'm not going to buy it. But it is incredibly hard. And I think we're too hard on ourselves to try to get everything in place and perform and be perfect. So that makes sense. What are some myths about perimenopause that people get wrong? Especially, and I'm not in the traditional medical world. And I say this because when I went to my doctor and I was like, look, I think I'm going through perimenopause. He's like, all right, well, look at your thyroid. Oh, everything looks normal for your age, is what
Mm.
he tacked on. The disclaimer at the end was, everything looks normal for your age. So let's talk about that and then talk about some myths surrounding perimenopause in general.
The fact that he said for your age is almost like, okay, you're just saying that because you don't know what you're talking about. Like,
Well, I didn't go
you
back to him.
yeah, like you can't just say that to women. Like women have had enough of this. Don't tell me I'm normal and I just
Right,
need to exercise more and eat less. Like don't tell me everything's okay. I know my own body.
right.
Um, and there is a huge connection between thyroid function and perimenopause. Like, how could there not be? Our
Right.
estrogen peaks, it's at its highest level during perimenopause.
Hmm.
Estrogen is anti thyroid, like, it slows down the thyroid and the metabolic rate. Estrogen drops core temperature. So, like, how could there not? The fact
Oh,
that they say something like that is like, yeah, you don't really understand this, do you? Which is okay. They don't get trained in hormones. They just do
right.
what they do.
Yeah.
And as well, like I don't hold anything against our doctors. They have a million people to see. Like it's not like
Right.
me where I have the luxury of spending time with people,
Mhm.
but I do think like women are fed up and like you
Yeah.
said, I'm not coming back to you. Like you're no help to me. I'm not coming back to
Nope.
you.
Nope.
And even now, like with the thyroid, I think a lot of the time I just assume based on all the considerations like the stress, the times we live in, nutrition, toxins in our air, our water, everything, most women are going to have some sort of thyroid issue. So that's almost assumed. And then we
Okay.
can ask the basic questions. I really can't emphasize enough how tests are not always the definitive marker that there's a problem there. Back to like, you'll always know your body better than any test or any doctor. Like, you've lived in your body for 30, 40, 50 years.
Right.
So just because the test says, oh, everything's quote normal, you're like, how is it normal? I feel rubbish. Like my hair is falling out and I'm not sleeping at night. Like, and I keep wanting to murder my husband because he's breathing. Like don't tell me it's normal.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of literature to support this, that even the tests are not like necessarily a good indicator that there's a problem. We need to be listening to women and
Yeah.
focusing more on the symptom picture there. But
So
another
the myths that people talk about, like what are the biggest misconceptions surrounding perimenopause, like that you
There's
have
2
heard?
big ones. There is
Okay, let's
2
go.
big, well, I suppose we can add on a third one. So the first one is the cycle changes, like I mentioned. Just cycle changes generally are a late stage symptom. So just because you don't have any changes in your cycle does not mean you're not in perimenopause.
That's what I've heard because my cycle's normal. And it
Mhm.
sucks. I hate that I still get my period every freaking month. Maybe it's a little late, but it's a who get I hate it. It's 6 days of BS. I hate dealing with it, but I've been told that I'm not in it because I'm still getting a regular
That's not
cycle.
accurate. Yeah, that's not true at all.
So that
You
is
can even have an anovulatory cycle, so you don't ovulate, but you'll still get a bleed. You'll just get a breakthrough bleed. So, like the fact
ah,
that you're not ovulating can be an indicator you're in perimenopause, but you'll still get a bleed. So that's not accurate at all. And then there's a whole like detox process. Like if this makes your life a little bit easier, we really should embrace our period because it is an indicator of our health, and our period is where we do get rid of obviously some hormones, but we also get rid of heavy metals and pesticides and other
really?
toxins. Like it's so important to have a bleed. You do not want all of that staying in your system and building up. Like that's highly
Wow.
concerning. Um, so
That's crazy you said that. One of my girlfriends, Sarah, if you're listening, Sarah Lutz, she used to say a couple years ago, and I believe she's 44 now. She used to say that she liked getting her period because after it was over, she felt like she was cleansed. Like she
yeah,
almost felt
yeah.
like she had to have it. She said that to me, and I looked at her like she had 3 heads. I
Well,
was like,
your body's doing what it's supposed to do. I have a lot of clients on birth control and IUDs, and when we start to clean up their body, they'll have a bleed and they're like, "Hold on. I haven't had a bleed in 5 years. I have an IUD. And I'm like, yeah, because you can't outsmart your body. If your
Yeah.
body is trying to flush and get rid of toxins, it's going to happen and you cannot stop it. Like
Wow.
to keep all of that, just like in layman's terms, to keep all that built up tissue and blood and estrogen and heavy metals and everything in your body.
Yeah.
Like really, everyone talks about detoxification so much. Oh, you need to poop, you need to sweat, you need to liver cleanse, blah, blah, blah. You need to have a bleed. Like we need
Wow.
to make sure we're having a bleed because it is the body's one of our main ways of detoxifying. So that would be the first myth. The
Okay.
second myth would be that once you've got, so menopause is only one day. People get confused about that a lot. You're not in menopause. You're in menopause for one day and then you're post-menopause. But a lot of
Uh-oh, your
women,
signal slowed down. I'm just giving you a heads up.
okay, we're back. So I was saying, menopause is only one day, and a lot of women will think, oh, I'm in menopause. You're not, you're in post-menopause. But there's this idea that, well, once all of this is over, like once I'm past that menopause day, everything's going to go back to normal. No, it'll never go back to normal. It's not going to go. Everything is going to be different. And a lot of
Okay.
women don't consider that a lot. And then that's important because if you can almost brace yourself for that and prepare for that, then
Mhm.
you can embrace it. Then you're like,
Okay.
I'm coming out a new me, like at
Yeah.
this stage. And I don't have a period to worry about every month. So freedom.
Yay. Yay.
The
No,
third
that,
thing,
yo, you're
one
right.
more thing I was going to add was
Yeah, the third myth.
the third myth, not so much a myth as much as a consideration, but this is a time like perimenopause, and you probably noticed it yourself, where you're like, enough of this bullshit. I've had enough.
Yeah.
Boundaries, no more of this. I'm done with this. This doesn't fill my cup. This doesn't make me happy. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm not doing that. Like that's very much it now. So it is a time where we start to reassess
Okay.
everything and take account, and we start to cut out stuff that's just draining us, and we're like, no, I've had enough of this. I'm over that. And
Yeah.
I'm only focusing on the stuff that's important and makes me feel good and gives me that joy and energy. So it really is a time where we start to take account of everything and reassess and almost turn everything upside down. So when we do come out on the other side, we got our ducks in a row. Like we know where our priorities lie.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to think about it. And I do think just being aware of it and not being, I hate everybody overuses this word, but being gaslit about it. Like I'm sick of it. I'm living it. It's what you said earlier. So,
Mhm.
all right. So now let's talk about it. What are some avenues that we can do at home? And then a step further. So what can you do? Like if you're in the boat I'm in. So before we started the podcast, the one thing I added to my diet that I didn't even realize I was deficient in was vitamin D3. And since I started taking those supplements, good quality ones, by the way, because it does matter the
Yes,
quality
it
you
does.
use, and how many milligrams and what you're getting out of it, how it's sourced. These are important, how you absorb it, which is important in supplements. Well, we can dive into that another call if you want, or you can touch on it in this podcast. But I started to notice that all the work I was doing, I started losing weight. Instead of maintaining, I'm actually losing weight. It's taken probably a month and a half. But what are some things that people can do at home for that, that are, nothing medicine related? I know as a doctor you can't advise, but as, a nutrition expert, what are some ways that we can mitigate a lot of symptoms?
Well, vitamin D is like a powerhouse, and I think it's gotten a lot more notoriety over the last few years. There was a lot of talk around vitamin D during COVID. A lot of
Yep.
people don't realize that vitamin D is actually more considered a thyroid hormone than anything else because
Oh,
it's pro-thyroid. It supports thyroid function and therefore helps with metabolism and that whole downstream effect. So you're saying like this is all I changed and all of
yeah.
a sudden it's easier to lose weight. That's one consideration. And this, it's a whole rabbit hole. Like there's a lot to be considered on how it could have helped, like vitamin D, as we see in the literature, taken at doses of 10,000 international
Yes.
units or
Tells me to take.
more. is
Mhm.
very powerful anti-inflammatory. So you reduce the inflammation and you improve insulin resistance in itself. You improve sleep. When people are
Wow.
sleeping better, they're generally going to make better food choices and they're going to be more energized to go for a walk and like
Right.
do stuff.
Right.
But vitamin D like is really simple and it's got like over 300 functions in the body. So
Wow.
between immunity, cognitive performance, macular health, it is a precursor to the sex hormones, so it can help upregulate the production of, well, our very important sex hormones, the ones that we would consider like the ones I would call the hormones of youth, are
Oh,
DHEA, pregnenolone, progesterone.
wow.
It helps with all the hormones. So like you can get a really good vitamin D for a
Mhm.
good price. Like that's
Okay.
super easy to take advantage of. One thing as well, if you don't mind, I'll add in is at this time of
Yeah.
the year. So I'm just outside Calgary and it's minus 25 here and it's been
Ugh.
miserable here for 2 weeks. Like
Ugh.
so gross. And this is the time of the year where people start to feel like last week it was minus 40. I can't
Oh.
even explain to you. You've never experienced cabin fever till this.
Yeah, yeah, God, that sounds awful. I lived in Colorado and I was right outside the Denver area. I wasn't in the mountains. I never had to deal with those. I mean, if it was -5, we were flipping out. That was like a big deal. If it was -18, that's the worst I remember it being during a blizzard. But for the most part, it was pretty sunny. It wasn't really overcast. I
Yeah.
had no idea. And I'm sorry, what's the temperature today? -25?
Yeah.
Yuck.
And that's Celsius. Like it
God,
sucks
no.
a lot. Like I mean, I could curse, but let's just say it sucks a lot. But this is the time of the year where women especially start to get that cabin fever and
Yeah.
seasonal affective disorder. And what do we hear about seasonal affective disorders? Oh, just increase your vitamin D because it's going to help with that. Well, why does it help? It helps because seasonal affective disorder is directly connected to low thyroid function. And we know that
Ah,
thyroid functions lower in the colder, darker months because of the sun exposure. Thyroid is
okay.
more active in the summer. That's also why we see lower cholesterol in the summer. But by
Mm,
taking the vitamin D, you are helping with the mental health, but you're helping with the thyroid function. So
wow.
that's like our low hanging fruit because you can get
Yeah.
vitamin D anywhere.
Yeah.
And even in food sources like eggs, beef,
Mhm.
liver, all that fun stuff.
Well, eggs, I'm a big milk drinker. I always have been growing up. I drink a glass of milk before bed every night. I know that's creepy. It's like I'm 5 years old, but it's a habit. My daughter's the same way. So I've never had, I like foods that are rich in vitamin D, but eggs, in case you don't know, Chemaine, I don't know, are eggs expensive in Canada right now? Because
Yeah,
they're outrageous here right now.
everything is expensive here.
No, no,
Yeah.
no, no. Eggs are out of control the last couple of months. They have skyrocketed. Like I went to Aldi's and I know it's cheaper to live. I live in Florida. So for context, yes, it's beautiful here today. It's 70 some degrees. Sorry. Chemaine, you come and see me. I'll give you some natural vitamin D by the pool. You can hang by the pool and relax. It does. You would think, I mean, it does help. And I sit out on my back lanai all the time by the pool. But I again, I'm still stressed and dealing with whatever, and you still have to correct for that. But that being said, so if you ever want to come and get your vitamin D, but eggs here have gone up at Aldi's like 5.49 a carton. I was there 2 days ago.
I like
5.49 for
you're
a dozen
like
eggs.
that almost makes me laugh because I need to buy eggs today, and I know a dozen eggs, the ones I buy,
Yeah,
$11 for a
yeah,
dozen eggs.
yeah. Well, when I said when Aldi's is getting, because they have cage free,
Yeah.
grain fed, no hormones, kind of, chicken eggs. I will, and I don't. The cage free thing that's a whole other
Yeah, yeah,
topic.
yeah, yeah.
It's bananas. You don't really need the cage free rule is stupid. But anyway, that's long story short. Farmers know, but at 5.49, if you've gone to Aldi's and you're paying that, it's probably like you said, $11 for a dozen eggs in the regular grocery store. I want to say 4 months ago, I paid maybe $4 or $5 for the good eggs. I like the eggs that have more less treated hens and that sort of thing. So I pay attention to that because I'm a big egg eater. I eat the yolk. I'm not an egg white person. I go all in, and they're so good for you. And they're even better than eating chicken, I would imagine, or I've been told. Is that true? Just like a chicken breast, like the egg has the yolk itself.
Well, that's context. That would be another podcast. That's all in
Okay.
context. So egg yolks are
Okay.
great, but everything is in context. But
Okay.
like that in itself, what you're saying is stressful for people. Like you're a mom and you're going out shopping or grocery
Yeah.
to get groceries and you're trying to feed your family and you're looking at the prices and they keep going up and up. And now you're like, oh no, like what can I not buy? What can I
Yep.
cut out? Where can I
Yep.
save money? But I still want to make sure my family gets nutrition. And that in
Right.
itself is stressful. Or let's say like you've a kid with special needs or they have some sort of health condition or you
Yeah.
have like IBD and you need these specific foods and supplements to help, but you
Yeah.
can't afford them. Like how stressful is that?
It is, and then hopefully the market will correct itself. That's another podcast.
Yeah.
So we're, working through all of that. But
So
yeah,
that
it's
is like, that
it's
would
tough.
be, you asked about like a couple of things we could do like that. As much as stress has to be mentioned, but I try not to bring it up too much because we all know at this stage you got to
Yeah.
manage your stress. You just have
Yeah.
to. And sometimes even with clients, I won't even bring it up because it almost makes them feel guilty that they can't manage it better, and that's a
Yeah.
whole kettle of fish.
It is. And sometimes you have to recognize that your situation is stressful. It's supposed to be. You can assess that level,
Mhm.
but your response is where it's at. So that makes total sense. What else would you recommend that you could do at home besides mitigating stress? We all need to do that. Taking vitamin D. Do you recommend anything else that would
Well, you
help?
got to, like I've mentioned at the start of the conversation, you have to optimize sleep. Like you literally have to prioritize sleep. I'm in bed
Oh,
at 8:30 every night. So you're
you're in
not
bed at
boring. Yeah.
really?
8:30, head is on the pillow at 9. I have a very strict bedtime routine. It's
Yeah.
one of the staples in my clients' day. They have to have their evening routine. I'll share it with you. It works like gangbusters, but you
Okay.
have to prioritize sleep because sleep is like sleep during those 8 to 9 hours.
Yeah.
That's where we're producing all these hormones. We get our dump of human growth hormone, we get
Wow.
estrogen, then come the start of the morning, of course, we get testosterone. Men know this, but women also do.
Okay.
Thyroid is most active first thing in the morning. We produce progesterone first thing in the morning. Like our metabolism peaks first thing in the morning. And if you haven't prioritized sleep, it's going to be a shit show because you will have increased inflammation and that's just going to put up a wall in front of
Mhm.
everything and everything's going to be harder. So you have to prioritize sleep.
Yeah. What
Uh,
do you think about people that say they only need like 4, 5, 6 hours sleep? Is that
I think they have a hormonal dysregulation. I
oh,
don't think there's anything as a night owl. I don't agree with that. No, as much as you like to say, well, there's chronotypes, and even the case of, oh, I'm just not hungry first thing in the morning. You know, a lot of women will say, I don't want breakfast. I'm not hungry. That's a hormonal dysregulation, and you need to train your body,
okay.
whether or not you like it. Like
Yeah.
it's for your own good. Then the
Okay.
next would be prioritizing nutrition. You have to get some sort of control on blood sugars. I know there's a lot of talk over this and it can seem
Yeah.
very daunting. You
Mhm.
don't have to get 100%. You have to
Mhm.
get some sort of control over your nutrition and your blood sugars.
Wow.
And then we can go into like the obviously like walk, swim, exercise, like all
Yeah.
make sure you fun in your life. Fun is a big thing. And I speak about this a lot with people on my podcast. Like I think
Mhm.
people are very unhappy nowadays.
Yeah.
And that plays a huge factor in not only how you perceive the world, but how you're feeling internally. And we become what we think. Like
Yeah.
really we
It's
do.
true.
So
It's
I
true.
think
You
people
manifest
need
it.
more happiness, sing out loud, watch comedies, watch funny movies, like
Yeah,
do
yeah,
silly things. Like
yeah,
just, you know, that old saying of dance like nobody's looking, just
yeah,
like be like nobody's looking. Just do stuff. Do what makes you
yeah.
happy. Who cares what other people think?
I actually am a bad dancer and I dance no matter if people are looking at me or not. In fact, yesterday I got so frustrated and I just put down my phone, I put on music and started dancing. And we have a front sitting room that's actually a pool room. And I just danced around. I'm like, I can't take it. I won't say what I listen to, but if, I'm happy to share the pod. Well, you can actually, this is the most embarrassing thing about me is that this podcast is on Spotify and it's connected to my playlists, which are some of them I went back and revisited a few and I'm like, what the hell is this song? This is a terrible playlist. What the hell headspace was I in when I made it 8 years ago? I've been on Spotify a long time. So I was like, what in the hell? I mean, but I danced to it anyways. I was like, all right, I'm just going to rock this. I don't care. I'm more embarrassed about my playlist selections than I am my dancing. But you're right. It's like you need to have fun. And that's going to prompt me to watch some stand up comedy tonight because I am not going to lie to you. It has been a really, really rough week. All right. Before we sign off, where can people find you, Chemaine?
So you can find me on my website, Chemaine'sModelHealth.com. My podcast is called Find Your Model Health. I'm really active on Instagram and Facebook, so that's just Chemaine's Model Health as well.
Okay.
Like I'm kind of everywhere.
Yeah. Well,
I'm
I just
not on
want,
tip. I don't do TikTok.
you're
That's a
not doing
strict
TikTok?
rule. I do not know. I'm like, I'll do the bare essentials. I do YouTube as well, but I'm not doing anything more than what I have to do.
Yeah. No, I understand that. I mean, actually, I'm moving to YouTube. I agree with you. I think that TikTok, and this is a whole other, podcast in the future, but I think if you haven't really been on TikTok yet, it's okay that you're not. You know
Mm.
what I mean? It was more of kind of an early adopter thing. I mean, I know certain videos have gone viral, but I agree with you. Now, I'm not going to lie. I do watch TikTok videos, but it is what it is.
It's
But
just too much. It's just like
it's a
just
lot.
adding to the load of what I have to do. So no, like I
Yeah,
YouTube, podcast, Facebook, look, they work awesome for me. So if it's, if it's not broken, don't fix it.
I agree with you. Chemaine, I want to thank you so much for joining us today, for sharing all your insight and for being a guest and just for taking the time to chat. So stick around for a couple minutes and then we'll wrap up the show.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, Chemaine.
Thank you.